So, back in the day, before we had YouTube, a couple of years, well, more than a couple of years ago now, we used to be influencers on Instagram. So we thought today we would do a video about our insights into what it was like to be kind of like fashion and travel influencers back when influencing first kicked off, and basically why we hated it. Yeah, I was going to say, spoiler alert, we aren't influencers anymore, are we? Nobody else I've seen has really talked about like what goes on behind the scenes in the influencer lifestyle and why it might not be appealing to some people and why it's not all that it looks to be. So we started influencing probably back in 2017. It was like second year of uni, and I think it was kind of an extension of our blog at first. So we created a blog and we called it Twin Talk at first, and it was a very old school blog, how blogs used to be before people started to understand SEO and affiliates and all of that. It was literally a stab in the dark, wasn't it? Like, we were just writing random posts. Yeah, it was so random. I mean, anyone that had an old school blog knows how it is. Like, you would literally write a post about your day. Sometimes we would write about our beauty favourites or like outfit of the week or anything like that was kind of what went in our blog. And what's funny is back then there was like a community of people that would actually like read each other's blogs and like comment on each other's blog posts. But for us, that was kind of like the starting point. And then when we took to Instagram as a way to promote the blog, that's when we actually realised that we could start to get a little bit more out of Instagram in terms of like collaborations and having a bigger audience than what we had on the blog. Yeah, well, we were seeing other people doing it on Instagram. We've always loved taking pictures anyway. It was the right next step for us. Like, a blog is great, but you don't always have time to be writing really lengthy blog posts that probably aren't going to get read by anyone. It's quite like creatively draining, whereas taking photos, it was something that we enjoyed at the time, and especially when we mixed it with fashion and travel. So we started off as Twin Talk, and then we kind of got the ick with that name. Like, it started to sound very icky. So then we changed it to Two Times Style, which I still love that name. I love that name. And we were doing a lot of like fashion photography posts at the time, so it kind of like fitted with what we were representing on Instagram. To cut a long story short, we got really into it, and we put a lot of work into growing followers and doing all of these photo shoots, and we would often go to a location just to do a photo shoot, which is now like pretty much the norm for an influencer, isn't it? But we'll have to put some pictures on the screen of some of our outfits, because back then we literally thought that we were the most fashionable people in the world, but we were there in like Shein clothes and like Boohoo and... But I think this is the thing about influencers, and I'm not saying they're all the same, because there is all different kinds of like influencers in the fashion niche, but a lot of it is following trends. So the kind of trends that were in a few years ago aren't in anymore, and like trends actually end up looking quite stupid when they go out of trend, a lot of them anyway. So I mean that's a big thing that's changed for us, is now we don't follow trends. So we were trying to do like loads of like very serious like editorial style fashion shots, and we did have a laugh, didn't we, recently when we look back at some of the pictures, because we're just looking like really moody. Like, it's not even that kind of like model moody, like we look like we're in bad moods. It's so funny. And most of the time we would just go and shoot in Derby or Nottingham, because that's where we were living at the time for uni. And I just remember going through so many clothes hauls. Like, that is what my student loan went on. Like, I was constantly buying from Shein, constantly buying from ASOS. Like, it became a bit of an obsession to try and get latest trend that all the other influencers were wearing on Instagram, and we had to show it off for ourselves. And that kind of mindset, I mean, quite luckily, I think people are going away from fast fashion now, because that's definitely an era that I'm not that proud of. And I think it taught me that like following trends is the biggest waste of money, because you'll end up with a load of clothes that you're never going to wear again. I think our problem was we wanted to create content and we didn't know what we wanted to do. Like, we were not brave enough to do YouTube. Like, looking back, we should have just started with YouTube from the very start, but it's very nerve-wracking, YouTube is, because it's like putting yourself out there. And literally like, saying we're filming this in the car literally as someone walks past. Like, you have to like get over any awkwardness and the fact that like friends and family might see you as well. I think with photos on Instagram, it's like less of a nervy thing, because everybody's got an Instagram account and everyone's taking photos. and you can control exactly what is going out as well. Like you can pick out of hundreds of pictures. So at our height on Instagram, we probably had about 33,000 followers. That's probably like the most that we got to, and a lot of work went into that, like a lot more than you would think, because as well as like taking the photos, which in itself was a job, it was then like editing them, putting the presets on them, and then the behind the scenes of growing a followers and our account was probably like the most boring thing out of them all, because we were just constantly like, we would follow accounts that we thought would be interested in us. We would be in like Telegram groups. I don't know if anyone's used like the Telegram messaging app. I forgot about Telegram. Yeah, that was my job, to be in this group, and there was a load of other influencers in that group, like with all different niches, and we would just like each other's stuff, comment on each other's stuff to like try and get the picture out there and like kind of get around the Instagram algorithm, which seems to hate influencers. Yeah. Oh well, nobody even knows if the Instagram algorithm, like the whole shadow ban thing, is real. Like a shadow ban, it's everyone's biggest fear. Yeah, everybody in these groups seemed to think that they were shadow banned, and it basically means that like Instagram stops pushing your content out to people, because I don't even know why. No, I guess it's just that you violate some policy along the way, and then it's like really hard to get it back. But the reality is, like, there are a lot of hungry influencers out there, and I feel like we were kind of the same. Like we wanted to cheat the system a little bit to get more followers, because, and grow as quickly as possible. Yeah, because obviously that's what we wanted. Like we wanted to have a big audience. We wanted this to be something that we could do full time. And I mean, we did grow pretty quickly. In the space of 2 years or 3 years, I'd say we managed to get to 33,000 followers, but it definitely wasn't worth it. No. I mean, we'll talk about the things that we enjoyed first, because we did get some collaborations out of it, and it was really fun working with brands. Like, as you can imagine, being like 19-year-old uni students and having brands reach out to you and offer to like gift clothes and jewelry and stuff to you, it's like really, really exciting. And like some of the highlights we had was like the collaboration with Miss Selfridge. Like I remember they asked if they could send us some jewellery, and I remember the package like arrived at my uni accommodation, and I just remember it was this massive bag, and I emptied it out, and it was just full to the brim of jewellery. And that was a really exciting one. I remember we also worked with a PR agency, and they invited us for brunch in London, and that was crazy. That was like, wow. But I remember one of their clients was Havaianas, and again, like we got sent this like massive Havaianas gift package, and I think that influencers are very used to that kind of lifestyle now, but to us, like, we were not used to having anything given to us for free, so that was just crazy. It was such a new concept to us, and it was such a like pinch me moment. And we worked with Voucher as well, which was really, really cool. This is when we started to get more into like the travel side of things. Well, it's basically like showing our outfits in cool locations. We actually did a partnership with Voucher, and we stayed in the hotel in London, and we like shot some pictures around there, and the collaborations were definitely the highlight out of it all. But eventually it did get to that point where we were like, it's just not worth it anymore. So we touched on before that we were trying everything that we could to grow as quickly as we could. And part of that included doing things that just weren't organic. They just weren't allowing for organic growth. Like we just wanted to, like what I said, we wanted to cheat the system a little bit. It was like get as many followers as quick as possible. We were doing follow and follow, which is like so annoying to be on the other end of. Like if a big account follows you, and then you know they're going to unfollow again eventually. But it did work really well in helping us to grow. But I think I always look back at that now, and I'm like, that's one of the reasons why it just stopped being so enjoyable, because it felt like it was a job. Whereas with this YouTube, we're how many months in now? January, February, March, April. We're just over 4 months in, and we have like 180 subscribers, and we're just trying to grow completely naturally. And what I will say as well is that all of those subscribers feel a lot more special than the 33,000 followers we had on Instagram, because I do feel like YouTube is more of like a place for like engagement, and like we get comments on the videos and things like that, whereas on Instagram, engagement was something that we didn't really have. Like we didn't actually get that many likes considering the amount of followers we had. And we would barely ever get like genuine comments from followers, because what is there to be to comment on apart from like, oh, you look really nice. Exactly. And the problem with social media is that it fosters that comparative nature, which I am really bad at comparing myself to everyone. Like I've done this since I was a teenager. Like it's really bad for me. It's like I get into a really bad cycle. And obviously with Instagram, like we're seeing all of our closest competitors, if you want to call them that, like other influencers in our niche. We're watching them grow. We're watching their accounts blow up and take off. They're getting all this engagement and they're working with these amazing brands, and we felt like we were falling behind. And as we fell behind, I definitely felt like there was more pressure, and I felt like I needed to then work harder, and I was losing control.
Yeah.
And that's what it became. Like, it became this control thing.
Yeah, and it's like, oh, this person's worked with this brand, and when you've not had a collaboration in ages, and then it's kind of like, oh, when's the next, like, brand going to come in and the next bit of money. It started to become too much of a job, and it's something where when we set up YouTube, we said, like, we never want it to feel like that. If we ever find ourselves, like, over analysing with YouTube, we always just take a step back and just tell ourselves, we're doing this for enjoyment. Like, we want to be able to enjoy it.
Yeah, and that's why the videos on this channel have kind of been all over the place recently. Like, we're just trying to film what we enjoy and be authentic,
and just kind of get back to old school YouTube as well, because I do feel like a lot of people are enjoying those more like raw, natural videos, like filming in the car, as opposed to having this like beautiful backdrop. Like, I feel like that's very like 2020 now.
Yeah, like I definitely prefer myself just watching people that are really natural and authentic. Like, I'm not a fan of like this overly produced side of YouTube.
The aesthetic side of YouTube. I think with our Instagram, it got to the point where it took over our lives, and if we went on a holiday, it wasn't even like a holiday, because like we were taking so many pictures, and our poor boyfriends at the time, like, they had to take so many photos of us. And I remember going to Santorini with your husband, Brad, and I would say like at least 60% of the trip was just us trying to take all these photos, because it's such a beautiful location, and we were like, oh, if we get X amount of photos, we can keep this going, we can post for like a full month.
And you know what is weird as well? I remember being so disappointed with them pictures. Like, we'll put some on the screen now, and I just thought, God, we're just so behind other travel influencers. Like, we can't do it. Like, what's wrong with us? Like, why have we not got photography skills that they've got? Like, we've got a great camera, we're in a beautiful destination. Like, what is our problem? And I look back at those pictures now, and I'm like, they are so beautiful. Like, they're some of the most beautiful pictures we've ever taken.
But we just didn't see it at the time. And like, you get frustrated as well. Like, when you're trying to take a picture, it's just not going right, and you can't get a good one. Like, everyone knows that feeling when you, you know, you're ready for a night out and you're trying to get a picture and they just look really bad. Like, that was how it felt for like most of the trip, and like on reflection they were really nice, but it kind of like ruins the mood of the holiday, and it takes away like the relaxation. Like, I still think it's nice to this day to get holiday pictures, but like not to the extremities that we went to back then.
Like,
and I
we
think
will
as
never
well,
be
for our boyfriends that were taking the pictures, like, they weren't getting anything out of this, really.
Exactly. We will never be the kind of people who want to wake up, like, you hear about the influencers who wake up at like 4 a.m. to get to the Taj Mahal at sunrise when nobody else is around. We never want to do that, because that is not, like, we want to be documenting our lives as we're having fun naturally, rather than going out of our way and turning something that we love into work.
And I think as well, like, especially when we became, like, we established ourselves as travel influencers, we felt like we always had to be going away and like going on holidays. And say if I went on a trip with my boyfriend at the time, the audience would think that you were there as well, and it was just like pictures of me. And we felt like we had to drag out, like, whenever we went away somewhere, we had to like drag out that content for all that it was worth, so that we would have stuff on our feed to like keep ourselves going as travel influencers. And another thing that I'll say as well is that it is really, really embarrassing taking pictures as an influencer in public. You can't do it in your bedroom. Like, I remember when that was fine at the beginning, and then like it all became street shots. It's easier when you're abroad and there's like, you know, like monuments and like things to take pictures of.
Like tourist destinations.
But when you're in Derby in your student town, and you might bump into like your cheating ex or like your student friends, and you're taking photos just in the streets of Derby, it was really, really embarrassing. And that was something that I didn't like as well. Like, I know some people would be like, oh, I couldn't care less what people think, but for me, I always felt a bit awkward about that.
Me too, I was just gonna say, Santorini for me was a turning point, to go quickly back to that, because I remember there was a moment when we'd got up quite early and we were taking pictures in theatre, and I remember none of the pictures were looking right, and it was because the sun had come too high. So like, you know how golden hour pictures are the best, like we were past golden hour, like it wasn't sunrise, it wasn't sunset,
it was when it's got that like shadowy, like
it
high
was just not
contrasted,
good. And when your faces are looking a bit sweaty and stuff,
And I remember just going in a genuine bad mood. And I took it out on Brad as well, my husband, who was my boyfriend at the time. He was taking the pictures. And I remember being annoyed at him just by the fact that he was using the camera.
Yeah.
And that honestly was such a changing point for me, because I remember just thinking afterwards, why did I care? Like, I was in a beautiful place. We should have just been enjoying ourselves. And I was literally in a bad mood about where the sun was in the sky, which is just something that is unavoidable.
Yeah, and I think actually that point that you mentioned about taking it out on Brad, that is something that probably a lot of influencers can relate to, is like when the picture's not going right and then you think, oh, the angle's a bit off, and then you're saying to Brad, like, why can't you just like put it this way a little bit? Like, you're doing the angle wrong, like you've chopped this bit off that you wanted to see.
The thing is, if you're not an influencer, you're listening to this now going, what are these girls talking about? Like, that sounds so stupid. And it does. Like, I can hear how stupid that sounds.
Yeah.
And we had to actually leave the influencer scene to realise that, I think.
Yeah.
So ultimately, we felt like we were inferior to all of the other influencers that were out there. Like, whether that was true or not is debatable. And we just felt like we were becoming obsessed with something that just didn't matter. So I can't remember exactly when we actually decided to quit, but it must have been just before we moved to Australia.
I think it was when uni was coming to an end, which is ironic because when we went to Australia, the month before we went, we like travelled around America and we could have got some great travel content, but I do think in the third year of uni, it was really like petering out because, I mean, we were in third year of uni anyway, so it was hard to like commit the time to anything other than, you know, uni work and actual work.
It shows how our mindset had changed though, because at the start we were thinking like, oh, what if we can make a career out of this? And then as we leave uni, and that would be a great time to go into an influencing career, we were like, no, we're done. Like,
we just lost the passion completely. And
I remember it was really difficult to actually admit to ourselves that we wanted to quit, because we'd worked so hard. Like, this had been a passion project for so long, and it just exists on the internet as well. Like, we didn't want to delete the account or anything, so there was something kind of sad.
I mean, we still knew, even though we were so critical of ourselves, we still knew that we really liked all of our pictures, so it was kind of like, it felt like a waste to get rid of the whole account.
But ultimately we decided to do it, and I really do just think that it just showed how we were feeling at the time, because as much as we really felt like this Instagram account was our baby by that point, we actually couldn't carry on with it.
And I think that looking back, like, we never had any regrets for quitting the account. Like, I remember I picked it up for a little bit because I did a bit of YouTube, dipped into a bit of YouTube. I think that was in the third year of uni, so I picked up the account and I was just posting pictures of me for a while and kind of using it as a platform to promote my own YouTube, which doesn't exist anymore. But I think like the lesson that we learnt from that is that even though we are super creative people who enjoy putting an extent of ourselves online, that was just the wrong platform for us.
Eventually, never say never, we'll probably get Instagram again. We're going to approach it completely differently. Like, it's going to be so much more natural and honest, and we're not going to waste time trying to get a million shots to get the best picture. Like, we'll just be posting genuine photos.
Just whatever we fancy, really. Because I think for us, like, the influencer lifestyle did just start to get to a point where it feels quite fake. And even now to this day, there's not a lot of influencers that I follow. It's not to say that influencing isn't an art. Like, we've done it, we know the effort that goes into it, and there are some absolutely amazing influencer accounts out there, but for me, it just doesn't interest me anymore. And it's kind of like, why would you post about something you're not interested in?
I'd much rather be seeing someone living their genuine life rather than just seeing the constant highlight reel of an influencer's account.
And just a lot of like staged outfit shots. I think like the whole commercialism thing anyway doesn't really align with us anymore. Like, we are trying to step away from fast fashion. So for us, we found that YouTube fits a lot more nicely into like our lives, and it reflects our values, and it reflects the things that we enjoy as well, because we've said this so many times, like, YouTube has always been our favourite platform,
and it's so fun. Like, that's the biggest difference. Like, that's why we gave up the Instagram, because it stopped being fun. And now when I do go to London or I go to a
a popular tourist destination and I see people who are clearly influencers or want to be influencers, and they're there taking all the pictures and looking through the shots and trying to get the best shot, like, I just feel sorry for them.
I just think rather you than me.
Yeah, I know how it feels, and maybe it is fun for some people, but
with our YouTube, from the beginning, we've been really strict with ourselves about the way that we've approached it. I think it's about knowing when to be serious and when to not be serious, because we have created our year's content calendar, and for us that helps us to stay on track. But then when it comes to like analysing subscribers and things like that, we just try not to do that, because like I said before, we're doing this because we enjoy it, and anyone that wants to like follow us along on our journey, that's kind of like an added bonus.
Yeah, we're not trying to do this as a business, are we? Like, we're starting another business that's completely separate. We're starting a business together. This is a hobby, and if anything else comes of it, then that's great, but trying to approach something with a business mindset can sometimes take a lot of the fun out of it.
Yeah, definitely. So that was kind of like our little story time about when we were influencers and why we hated it so much. So yeah, I hope it was an interesting listen, and if it was, please do subscribe to our channel if you're not already. Give this video a thumbs up, it always helps us, and yeah, we'll talk to you in the next video. Bye.
Now I realize it was always supposed to be.